My name is Amber, and I used to be the quiet girl in the corner. The one who did all the work, never made noise, never caused problems, and always smiled. I worked as a data analyst in a mid-sized tech firm in Austin, Texas. I was proud of what I did, and even more proud that I had worked my way up from being an intern to a full-time employee. I stayed late when others clocked out. I fixed problems no one else could even understand. I ran the numbers, built the dashboards, and made presentations that helped our sales teams close big deals. But there was one problem. My boss, Mark. Mark had a strong jawline, slicked back hair, and wore expensive suits he didn't earn. He looked like he belonged on the cover of a fashion magazine, but behind that shiny smile was a man who had built his whole career by stepping on other people's backs, especially mine. He would call me into his office, ask me to just clean up a report or run a few numbers real quick for his big presentations. I didn't think much of it until I started seeing him get praised over and over again for ideas that were mine. Even worse, he never once mentioned my name. Not even a thank you in passing. One day during a big company-wide meeting, our CEO, Amanda, clapped her hands and said, "Let's give it up for Mark." His new market strategy boosted our quarterly revenue by 22%. Incredible work. Everyone stood up and applauded. Mark did a fake humble wave like, "Oh, stop it," and then glanced at me. He knew. He knew I was the one who stayed up all night building that forecast model from scratch. I sat there, frozen. My heart pounded in my chest, and my stomach twisted in a knot so tight it hurt. That was the moment I knew. Mark wasn't just using me. He was robbing me. So, I made a choice. I was going to let him crash and burn. And the best part? He would never see it coming. It started small. I didn't want to get caught, so I had to be smart. That's when I began organizing everything I did into my private folder, saved with timestamps. Every report, every email, every bit of code, I saved them with my name clearly attached. I also started BCCing myself on every email Mark asked me to send on his behalf. It was quiet, invisible prep work. I didn't want revenge just yet. I wanted proof. At the same time, I played along, smiled at his jokes, stayed late, polished his slide decks. I gave him exactly what he wanted until the day I didn't. It was the day before the annual board presentation, a huge event where Mark would showcase the company's direction for the next year. We were a month into preparing for it. I built out a highly advanced data projection tool that simulated regional growth. It was flawless. Mark had no idea how it worked. He kept asking, "Hey, Amber, can you make this part look cooler? Add a 3D effect or something." He didn't care how it worked, just wanted it to pop. So I gave him a version that looked shiny on the outside, but under the surface, I coded it to rely on a hidden password to function. Without it, the dashboard would freeze. And it would only crash after he opened it live during the presentation. He never even asked how it ran. Just copied the file, tossed it on a USB drive, and strutted off like a hero. The night before the presentation, I sat in my apartment with a bowl of popcorn and my laptop. I rechecked the time-delayed crash function. It was set perfectly, but I wasn't done yet. That morning, just 2 hours before the meeting, I walked into the office early, carrying a folder. I went straight to Amanda's assistant and said calmly, "Hey, this folder contains all the background files on the presentation Mark will be showing today. I thought the board might want a copy after he's done." She smiled and nodded, placing the folder on Amanda's desk without a second thought. Inside that folder, my full project breakdown, coded with my name, timestamps, and proof of authorship. I walked back to my desk and waited. 10 o'clock came. The conference room filled up. Even I wasn't allowed in, it was that high level. But I didn't need to be there to see what happened. Because 15 minutes later, the glass walls of the boardroom lit up with movement. I saw Amanda's brows knit together. The board members started looking around, confused. Mark was sweating. I couldn't hear them, but I could read body language, and Mark's was screaming panic. Then, he picked up his phone and stormed out of the room. Straight toward me. He stopped in front of my desk, red in the face, whisper shouting like a kettle about to explode. "Amber, what the hell did you do?" The system crashed in front of everyone. My files corrupted or something. I blinked innocently. Really? That's weird. Maybe you used the wrong version. His hands were shaking. Give me the working one. Right now. I would, I said softly, but I think Amanda has all the files she needs now.
His face drained.
He knew something was off. And he was right. Because while I was speaking to him, Amanda stepped out of the boardroom behind him, holding the folder I delivered earlier. Her eyes locked onto mine. She didn't say a word, just gave a subtle nod. I felt a jolt of electricity run through my chest. Was this it? Was it finally happening? That moment didn't last long, though. Because just when I thought the day couldn't get crazier, something even bigger happened. Amanda called me into the boardroom. Not Mark.
Me.
And that's where I'll stop for now. Because what happened next turned my entire career upside down. And it was only the beginning. I had never stepped foot in the boardroom before. It was a place reserved for high-level executives in tailored suits with million-dollar ideas. I was just Amber, the back-office data girl who kept her head down.
But now the CEO herself had called me in.
Mark froze. His jaw hung open as Amanda looked straight at me and said, Amber, please join us. The board has some questions. I stood up slowly, trying to hide how fast my heart was beating. I could feel everyone in the open office watching, whispering, wondering what was going on.
Mark tried to follow me.
Amanda didn't even look at him when she said, just Amber. I walked into the room. There were 10 people sitting around a long glass table, their eyes flicking from me to the giant screen that still had Mark's frozen dashboard on it. Amanda pointed to an empty seat beside her. I sat down. Amber, she said, her voice calm but sharp, we reviewed the files you submitted this morning. They're very detailed. Your name is all over the source code and the reports. I nodded slowly, unsure what to say. A woman in a gray suit leaned forward. We'd like to understand exactly what your role has been in building this new regional growth model. I took a breath and explained. I told them how the dashboard was built, how the projections were calculated, how the filters worked, and even how the crash happened, without ever admitting I programmed it to do so. I just said it needed a password to run, and if someone didn't input it correctly, it would lock up for security reasons. The room was silent. Then Amanda leaned back in her chair and said, Why wasn't your name included in the materials Mark submitted? I looked her in the eyes and said, He asked me to stay quiet. He said it was part of being a team player, that I wasn't senior enough to be a presenter. Another long silence. Amanda turned to the rest of the board. I think we've heard enough. That was when I was asked to step out of the room. I returned to my desk. Mark was pacing nearby like a lion in a cage. The moment he saw me, he snapped. What did you tell them? You're trying to ruin me. I didn't respond. I just sat down and opened my email. 15 minutes later, Amanda stepped out and called Mark into the boardroom. This time, he didn't strut. He dragged his feet. And I waited. That entire hour felt like days. When he finally came out, his eyes were blank and his face pale. He didn't say a word, just walked to his office, shut the door, and lowered the blinds. By lunchtime, word had spread. Mark was out. Not demoted.
Fired.
The email went out from HR. Effective immediately, Mark L. is no longer with the company. Please direct all project questions to Amber T. I stared at the screen for a full minute before it hit me. I wasn't just a backup anymore. I was in charge. But that high didn't last too long. Because just 2 weeks later, while I was working late in the office one night, I received a text from a blocked number. You think it's over? You have no idea what's coming. I stared at the message, my hands trembling. I didn't know if it was Mark or someone else. But I knew one thing. This wasn't just about work anymore. It was about payback. And the storm hadn't even started yet. Because the next morning, something happened that shook me to my core. I arrived at work and found my laptop screen filled with gibberish code. My files were corrupted. My backups were gone. Every single dashboard I had built, deleted. The company's most critical data systems, dead. And someone had made it look like I was responsible. The real crash? It hadn't happened yet. But it had just begun. My jaw dropped as I stared at my computer screen. All the folders were gone. The dashboards I had built, the data models I designed, even the backup files I kept on our cloud system. All vanished. Worse? A red notification box blinked at the top of the screen. Security breach detected. User, Amber T. My heart sank. I shot out of my chair and ran straight to our IT manager, Thomas. He was already typing furiously at his desk, the blue glow from his monitors reflecting off his glasses. I didn't do this, I said before he could speak. Something's wrong. This isn't me. Thomas nodded slowly. I believe you. But the breach is coming from your login. It's serious. Amanda's already been notified. Within 5 minutes, I was sitting in Amanda's office again. This time, the atmosphere wasn't warm. The blinds were down. Her arms were crossed. Amber, she said, our servers traced the breach to your credentials. You've done good work here, but this is a serious matter. Can you explain? I did. I told her everything. How I had suspicions that someone was targeting me, how I got that creepy anonymous text, how Mark had stormed out weeks ago and swore he'd get revenge. But it all sounded like a weak excuse. Amanda didn't say a word. She just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then she said, we're placing you on temporary leave while we investigate. IT will confiscate your devices. I'm sorry. And just like that, I was suspended. I walked out of the office that day like a ghost. Nobody met my eyes. Nobody said anything. The same people who once congratulated me now turned their backs like I was carrying the plague. It was the lowest point I had ever hit in my professional life. But I wasn't going down without a fight. The moment I got home, I opened my personal laptop. Months ago, during late-night work sessions, I had made a habit of emailing encrypted backup files to my private email. Not because I was planning anything shady, but because I didn't trust the company's weak server security. That decision? It saved me. I still had access to everything. Even better, I had server logs saved, complete with metadata showing exactly who accessed what files and when. There it was in plain text. User, Mark L. Device ID, external IP address unknown. Login attempt, successful. 2 weeks after his termination. He had hacked in using an old admin account that had never been deactivated. Probably one he created quietly during his time as my boss. That slimy coward thought he was smart. But he underestimated me. I spent the whole night putting together a full digital trail, timestamps, access logs, IP lookups, and even screenshot comparisons of the source code. I labeled everything and zipped it into a folder I titled Truth Bombed and Zip. The next morning, I didn't email it. I printed the whole thing, color-coded, labeled, sealed it in a binder. Then I got in my car and drove straight to the office. I walked up to the front desk. The receptionist blinked in surprise. Amber? You're not supposed to. Please tell Amanda this is urgent. It's about the breach. She called upstairs. Amanda came down 5 minutes later. I could tell by her face, she wasn't expecting me. I handed her the binder. Read it, I said simply.
She didn't speak.
Just took the binder and walked away. By the end of the day, I got a phone call from Amanda herself. Amber, she said, her voice tight, we owe you a huge apology. Apparently, she had called an emergency IT audit the moment she saw the evidence. They followed the IPs, traced the rogue admin account, and even found malware hidden deep in the company's network. Mark had set up a backdoor before he was fired. He used it to destroy my reputation and almost got away with it. Almost. The board didn't just reinstate me. They promoted me. Director of Data Strategy. A corner office. A raise. And Mark? The company filed formal charges. Turns out, what he did didn't just break company policy. It broke federal laws. Cyber intrusion, data tampering, identity spoofing. The FBI was involved. I finally felt vindicated. But just as I was settling into my new role, thinking it was all behind me, I received one more message. It was a letter. No return address. Handwritten. You won this round, Amber. But I'm not done. There was no signature. I sat there in my new office, holding the note, staring out at the city skyline. Mark may have been gone, but someone else was still watching. And what happened next would shake everything again. I held that letter in my hand for a long time, just staring at it. The handwriting was sharp, almost like it was carved into the paper. No return address. No signature. Just those 7 chilling words. You won this round, Amber. But I'm not done. I locked my office door and read it again and again, trying to make sense of it. My first thought was obvious: Mark. It had to be him. But how? He was under investigation. His access was blocked. He was finished, wasn't he? I shoved the letter in a drawer and went back to work, telling myself it was just an empty threat. A last gasp from a man who had already lost. But something in my gut told me otherwise. And I should have listened. 3 days later, we were supposed to present a major data forecast update to a group of new investors. Amanda put me in charge of everything. This was my moment to shine again. I triple-checked every chart, every filter, every figure. I even brought 2 laptops as a backup. But the moment I connected my system to the company projector, the screen flickered. Then it went black. A few seconds later, something horrifying flashed across it. A video. Not one I made. It was edited footage, cut together from months of internal Zoom meetings and office security cam clips. But it was twisted. The voiceovers were altered. The numbers on screen were changed. And at one point, my face was edited onto a video saying something I never said. I've been manipulating the data for months. The room fell silent. I scrambled to disconnect my computer, but it was already too late. Everyone had seen it. Amanda stood up slowly, her face tight with shock. Amber, what is this? I was speechless. I hadn't done this. But someone had gone far to frame me again, and this time it was personal. I swear, I said. This is fake. It's all edited. That's not my voice. That's not even real data. Let's talk privately, Amanda said, her voice low. I followed her to her office. She shut the door, crossed her arms, and stared at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. I want to believe you, she said. But this is the second attack tied to your name in less than a month. If this continues, it won't matter what the truth is. Our investors will lose faith. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about me.
It was about my position.
Someone wanted to destroy my name so they could take the seat I had just earned. I was being set up again, but not just by Mark. Someone inside the company was helping him. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up scanning every folder, every camera log, every IP entry I could find. I pulled up the video and ran a voice analysis. It didn't match my voice signature. It was synthetic, AI-generated, deepfake software. It was convincing, but not perfect. There were tiny glitches, flickers, timestamp inconsistencies. I dug deeper. And then I found it. A recently created user account on our internal system, registered just 1 week ago. It had access to our video archives, internal communication tools, even Amanda's meeting calendar. The username was just 1 letter off from a real employee. And the IP address? It traced back to a private apartment, just 5 blocks from Mark's last known address. That was the proof I needed. The next day, I walked into the office and handed Amanda another binder, this one labeled Final Truth. She opened it and flipped through the pages. This time, her eyes widened with every turn. "You've got to be kidding me," she whispered. I had caught them. Mark hadn't acted alone. He had help from within. An assistant manager named Kevin, one of Mark's old friends who had quietly been promoted after Mark left, had created the fake account. He was feeding Mark access, helping him tamper with our systems from the inside, and planting fake evidence against me. Amanda called security immediately. Kevin was arrested on the spot. His desk, his emails, his devices, all seized. The company filed an emergency report, and the board issued a public statement clearing my name. I was praised for exceptional vigilance and extraordinary dedication. It was finally over. And this time, really over. Mark faced full federal charges, and Kevin was exposed and disgraced. Amanda granted me not just a raise, but a permanent seat on the executive strategy team. I was no longer just a number cruncher. I was a decision maker. In my first meeting with the board as Director of Strategy, Amanda introduced me and said, Amber doesn't just see patterns in numbers. She sees patterns in people. She saved this company twice. Let's hope we never make her have to do it a third time. Everyone laughed. I smiled. But deep down, I hadn't forgotten the lessons I learned. Stay humble. Stay kind. But never let anyone walk over you. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's watching the ones who tried to break you fall apart on their own. And walking away stronger than ever. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more juicy Reddit-style revenge tales.